away from my family.
You'll be dead by nightfall.
It's a pure horror.
The 2025 horror film The Woman in the Yard is a slow-burn psychological thriller that builds towards a powerful and tragic climax, focusing on themes of grief, mental health, and the hidden battles we face within ourselves. At first glance, the film seems to promise a supernatural tale of terror, with a mysterious woman in a black veil haunting a grief-stricken family. However, as the plot unravels, we realize that the true horror is not the woman in the yard, but the devastating mental struggles of the central character, Ramona, and the overwhelming toll grief and depression can take. At the heart of the film, we have Ramona, a mother mourning the loss of her husband, David. As she navigates life with her two children, Taylor and Annie, after his tragic death, she begins to experience strange and terrifying encounters with a mysterious woman who appears on her front lawn, seemingly knowing intimate details about her life and her pain. The film sets this woman up to be a supernatural entity, perhaps a ghost or even a demon. But as the story progresses, we begin to see that she's much more than that. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. In this video, we'll be diving deep into the ending of The Woman in the Yard and what it really means. We'll also break down the identity of the woman haunting Ramona, the significance of key symbols, and the ambiguous ending that leaves us questioning what's real and what's imagined.
You children are such darlings. Ripe enough to...
The Woman in the Yard. The slow burn and psychological tension. The movie begins by introducing us to a family in turmoil. Ramona, the mother, is struggling to hold her life together after the sudden death of her husband, David. The trauma of losing her partner, combined with the responsibility of caring for her children, creates a tense atmosphere that only worsens as the days go on. As Ramona tries to maintain some semblance of normalcy for her children, something far more sinister begins to unfold. One evening, a mysterious woman appears on the family's front lawn, shrouded in a black veil. She speaks cryptically, telling Ramona, "Today's the day." Initially, the woman's presence is unsettling, and as the film goes on, it becomes clear that she is not just a random stranger. She knows far too much about Ramona and her family. She knows about the car accident that killed David, and she even seems to tap into Ramona's innermost thoughts. This early encounter with the woman introduces the key theme of the film: mental health struggles, specifically depression and grief. The Woman in the Yard, at first glance, appears to be a supernatural horror film. However, the deeper we go into the story, the more it becomes evident that the true horror lies not in the physical threats, but in Ramona's emotional and mental state.
Your children are ripe enough to eat.
I would get out. Okay.
The woman's true identity, a manifestation of grief. As the film builds towards its tragic conclusion, the true identity of the mysterious woman is revealed in a twist that sheds new light on the entire narrative. The Woman in the Yard is not a ghost or an external force, but a physical manifestation of Ramona's grief and depression. She is not separate from Ramona. She is a part of her, representing the darkest corners of Ramona's mind, the parts that are overwhelmed with pain and loss. Throughout the film, Ramona tries to keep things together. She cares for her children, despite being consumed by the grief of losing her husband. But the woman represents the emotional turmoil Ramona is unable to escape. The woman taunts her, saying, "I'm the corners of your mind, the scary parts." This line becomes crucial to understanding the film's central message. Depression and grief are not just internal struggles. They can manifest externally, affecting not only the person suffering, but those around them as well. The film foreshadows this revelation by showing Ramona's explosive anger and frustration early on. Her outbursts become more intense as the woman appears, symbolizing how grief and depression can cause a person to lash out in ways they can't control. The woman's destructive actions, such as tearing apart the house and trying to grab Annie, further illustrate the internal chaos that comes with struggling to cope with such intense emotional pain.
Why is your face covered?
How did she get here?
Ramona's struggle with suicidal thoughts. One of the most heart-wrenching aspects of The Woman in the Yard is its portrayal of Ramona's suicidal ideation. The entire film hinges on the idea that Ramona has been planning her death for days, grappling with the overwhelming weight of grief and guilt. In a particularly difficult moment, Ramona sends her children away to the neighbor's house, signaling that she feels she can no longer protect them. The woman then helps Ramona point a gun at her head, suggesting that the grief has consumed her to the point where she is ready to end it all. This moment in the film is intense and tragic, yet there's a sense of ambiguity surrounding whether Ramona actually dies by suicide. The film plays with the idea that Ramona's mind is in a dreamlike state, where the lines between reality and fantasy blur. After the gun moment, the film transitions to a scene where Ramona is shown leaving the barn, alive, with her children running into her arms. The reunion is brief, and Ramona promises that the woman will not return for a long time. However, this moment is fleeting and uncertain. The key to understanding this ending lies in the mirrored writing seen on Ramona's painting. In the world of the film, mirrored letters are a characteristic of the dream state, a sign that Ramona may not have fully returned to reality. This suggests that the reunion with her children could be a fantasy, a final comforting moment before she succumbs to the depths of her despair. It's possible to interpret this ending in different ways. One interpretation is that Ramona is still alive, and by allowing grief into her life, rather than fighting it, she has found a way to coexist with her pain. The penguin, given to her by Annie, becomes a symbol of that hope. If we believe that Ramona has died by suicide, then the ending could represent a final, imagined reunion with her children, her mind finding a moment of peace before her tragic end.
Away from my family.
The significance of today's the day. Throughout The Woman in the Yard, the phrase "today's the day" is repeated, growing more ominous as the film progresses. This phrase is crucial to understanding the film's exploration of suicidal ideation. The woman's cryptic words indicate a looming sense of urgency that Ramona has felt for days. Every day she has contemplated suicide, but ultimately chosen not to act on her thoughts. However, the constant repetition of "today's the day" reflects the distorted self-talk that depression can cause, making Ramona believe that today is the only day that matters, the day when she will finally end the pain. The repetition also mirrors the cyclical nature of depression. It's not just about one moment of crisis, but the continuous struggle with thoughts of ending it all. "Today's the day" is the voice of the depression, telling Ramona that it's time to let go. And yet, she is continually caught between wanting to escape the pain and finding a reason to keep going.
Today's the day.
The reveal of David's death, the mystery surrounding David's death, is another key element of the film. Throughout the story, we know that he died in a car accident, but the circumstances remain unclear until later in the film. As Taylor confronts the woman, she learns that Ramona has been hiding the true story of that night. Ramona reveals that she and David went out to dinner, but their relationship was strained. Ramona felt trapped in her life on the farm, giving everything to the marriage and children, with nothing left for herself. She threatened to leave David, and the two argued during the drive home. In the rain, distracted by their fight, Ramona crashed the car, killing David. This revelation adds layers of guilt to Ramona's grief, intensifying her already fragile mental state.
Who is this woman? Huh?
The symbolism of Annie's penguin. Annie's stuffed penguin plays a subtle yet significant role in the film. Early on, Annie shares with Ramona that she tells the penguin only the happy parts of the story because the penguin doesn't like the bad stuff. This symbol of childlike innocence and hope becomes a representation of the joy and light Ramona once had before the grief set in. The penguin reappears at the end of the film, when Annie gives it to Ramona as she sends her children away to the neighbor's house. This act represents Annie's desire to ensure that her mother won't be alone, despite the overwhelming sadness that has taken over their lives. The penguin's role takes on even more significance at the very end, where its presence either signals that Ramona found hope through her children's love, or that Ramona's death is the tragic consequence of ignoring the darker realities of grief.
Now that Daddy's dead, we still gonna live here?
You know what? I don't know.
Our nerdy thoughts. The Woman in the Yard is a haunting exploration of grief, depression, and the internal struggles that come with loss. The woman haunting Ramona is not a supernatural entity, but a representation of the emotional and mental torment that grief can cause. The film's ambiguous ending leaves us questioning whether Ramona lives or dies, but it also highlights the importance of understanding mental health and seeking help before reaching a breaking point. In the end, the film serves as a poignant reminder that grief, while overwhelming, does not have to define our lives. There is always hope, and even in our darkest moments, we are not alone.
From head to toe. How she got there.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.